Unknown to many aboard USS Slater DE-766, this would be the final days in Key West, Florida. As with the previous days, on the 12th of September, the ship and crew got underway for the Torpedo training area. As the exercises commenced with a friendly TBF squadron, Seaman First Class Lewis was added to the sick list. This training only lasted a few hours before Slater sailed at 20 knots to the Orange State Pier. 40mm along with Hedgehog projectiles that had been previously offloaded were brought back on board, and the day ended with 5,525 gallons of fresh water. On the 13th, Sonarman 3rd Class Lace returned to the ship from temporary duty at the Fleet Sound School. More ammunition was loaded aboard the ship, and the typical anti-aircraft and anti-submarine ammunition was received, but they also obtained small arms rounds. 30 caliber and 45 caliber along with shotgun shells were also taken, and these would come in handy for shore parties, boarding parties, and for defense from enemy boarding. Only the previous spring had the destroyer escort USS Buckley DE-51 been boarded by German submariners. If you would like to learn more about that incident, in which an American captain had issued the order "Stand by to repel boarders" for the first time since the War of 1812, head on over to our website and listen to our podcast, DE Classified. The next morning, Slater cast off her lines and entered the RDF, that is Radio Direction Finder, calibration area. This was all completed by 1331, and she traveled to the United States Coast Guard refueling dock. While there, Seaman Second Class Ronsky returned from his confinement at the Marine Barracks, and while refueling, USS Tweedy DE-532 came alongside to port. Refueling completed at 1926, having taken 31,437 gallons of fuel. Tug YTL-297 arrived, and our friend Lieutenant Rayburn, whom we have seen many times through the summer, boarded Slater for one final time. The lines were cast off from the dock in Tweedy, and Slater moored starboard side to port side of USS Goff DD-247. Lieutenant Rayburn departed, and Slater received 4,000 gallons of fresh water. Once everything was ready, the Special Sea detail was set, and Slater got underway from the fuel dock, bound for New York City, in accordance with the confidential dispatch from the commander of Task Group 23.3, received on the 11th. Slater sailed through the night, and on the morning of the 15th, depth charges and anti-aircraft guns were tested. Seaman Second Class Lewis remained on the sick list, and she continued sailing into the 16th. On the 16th, Slater runs into a major problem. While testing equipment, including the Foxer gear, the Echo ranging gear was taken offline for repairs. Without this gear, detecting an enemy submarine would be very difficult, and the number 2 engine was also shut down to repair a fresh water pipe. Fortunately, it was only down for a few minutes. A suspicious target was seen at 1839, and 14 rounds of 3-inch 50 caliber were expended. 10 minutes later, the ship secured from general quarters, and as the sun set, course was changed slightly to avoid an approaching storm, and due to fog, visibility was reduced to 3,000 yards. The Echo ranging gear was still not in operation, though the listening gear was. Just after midnight on the 17th, general quarters. At 0112, 2 depth charges were dropped, and the Foxtrot gear was streamed. General quarters was secured 30 minutes later, and the gear was retrieved. Not much else is known about this incident. According to later interviews, a crew member on the fantail, while on watch, observed what he claimed to be a torpedo wake pass under the ship. Echo ranging was still inoperable at this point, and the sound room did not hear anything. At this point, Slater was somewhere off the coast between Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, and Ocean City, Delaware. It's certainly possible a U-boat fired at Slater. The U-boats were operating only miles off the coast up until the hours before Germany surrendered. but it's also possible the lookout saw a dolphin or a whale. With visibility reduced due to the fog, and probably choppy seas from the storm, it really could have been anything. Only 5 days prior, the Liberty ship SS George Ade had been torpedoed by U-518, 125 miles off the coast of North Carolina. By the 17th, U-518 was just under 300 miles off the coast of Delaware. It isn't out of the realm of possibility, but U-518 never reported attacking a ship on the 17th. Yeoman Second Class Witt wrote a colorful history of Slater after the war, and he briefly mentions this night. After leaving Key West in the middle of the night, we always leave and come into port in the middle of the night, it's so convenient for the crew. We missed that hurricane that kept us in port for 3 days. We were cruising peacefully one night off Cape Paratus, somewhere, when the sound gear crapped out. That was one night when we really needed those ping jockeys too. For the fantail watch, after 15 minutes of gulping, turning pale, and trying to talk, pushed his eyes back in and reported our torpedo had just missed our stern. All hands hit the deck and manned battle stations. We dropped a few charges to scare him and show that we were not a cargo ships. And then we ran like the devil. What do you want us to do? Stay around without any sound gear and get sunk? After we had all changed our skivvies, we hit the sack again. That was close. Later that day, Slater made it safely into Sandy Hook, New Jersey, and unloaded ammunition at Leonardo Pier. Once completed, Slater shifted berths to Pier 2 at the Bayonne Annex of the Brooklyn Navy Yard with the assistance of a couple tugs. On the 18th, Slater remained moored. Seaman First Class Colbert departed for 5 days of leave. Seaman First Class Lewis was still on the sick list. Chief Motor Machinist Mate Pfaff left for 6 days of leave. Next week, Slater will remain in port for repairs and an overhaul. After which, she's going to head up north to Casco Bay, Maine for a couple of weeks of training before returning to New York City for her first North Atlantic convoy to England. Be sure you are subscribed to our channel so you don't miss out.